Okay, very good. Standards gone wrong. Crypto wars. We had that, huh? Okay, very good. Sorry for that delay in getting the projector up and running. Okay, ethical hacking and vulnerability disclosure practices. So there are good hackers and bad hackers. Sometimes they're called black hat hackers, that are the bad ones. And then you have white hat hackers, that are the good ones. And then you have some kind of gray hat hackers where you don't really know whether they're good or bad. All of these, in fact, try to hack into systems because as soon as you start any system, it has some kind of bug. A bug meaning it has some function that you didn't think it should have. So even a simple system where you just give money to your friend, the system can already have a bug if your friend doesn't pay you back. So that's already a very simple system with a very simple bug. Now, as soon as you have software systems, the thing gets completely crazy. I think IBM estimates that between 1 line in 50 or 1 line in 100 has a bug. So if you have something like Microsoft Windows that has, I don't know, 10 million or 100 million lines, you can count the number of bugs that are in there. It's a lot. Not all are critical, of course. Some might just lose the mouse pointer for a second, but some of them are critical. So hackers, they will try to find these bugs and exploit them. There are different kinds of exploits. So there are the real malicious hackers. All they really want to do is they want to get into your computer and do malicious stuff. This can be government, this can be terrorists, this can be just mafia, the mob, it can be anybody who wants to get into computers and do something bad. So all these are called more, we put them here under malicious exploit, these are the black hat hackers. And then there are the white hat hackers where you find things like penetration testing, pen testing. This is in fact when a firm asks another firm to come and test their systems to look whether they're vulnerable or not. There is a whole set of vulnerability disclosure, which means what happens when you find a bug. Let's say you're somebody who is nice, somebody who wants the good of the world, not only for you, and you found a vulnerability, what do you do with it? And there are things called bug bounty, there's the Google Project Zero that also tries to find these vulnerabilities, and there are also a lot of different hacker conferences ranging from bad to good, sometimes in the same conference, depending on the speaker. Penetration testing is a very interesting thing. So this is really, you hire a hacker to get into your company. And most of the time, best thing is you don't tell anybody. Because of course, if you tell your secretary that there will be a penetration tester, next time she finds a USB key, she will perhaps not stick it in her computer, just for these 2 days, because she knows she might get into trouble. Whereas if she doesn't know it, she might just do what she does every time and, oh, a USB key, cool, let's see what is on there. And even if you put the name of the boss on the USB key and put something confidential or so, then people might, oh yeah, oh, the boss lost his key, it's confidential, let's look and plug it in the computer, no? And then on the key you have some kind of virus that infects the computer and then you're in the computer. So all this is penetration testing. You have to tell the boss, because if the boss doesn't know it and somebody finds you out, then you're into trouble. So the boss needs to know, of course, and then you can try to hack this. So there are a lot of people who are doing this, and some of them have really great fun, because it must be cool if you know all these systems and you try to enter them. So you can do port scanning, stress test, look what the system patches is, web applications, try to get into web applications. But I still think one of the biggest entry door is in fact social engineering. As I said, the example with the USB key, or the other example I gave before, when you call up the secretary and say, hey, I'm your administrator, my name is this and that, and I need to get the password for your username, and if you know some confidential information of the secretary, you might pull this off and get the information. Or you have a door that is locked by key cards and you want to get in there. So what you do is you just take a bunch of coffee, because you know that on Wednesday morning always the coffee guy comes. So you just take a bunch of coffee boxes, and when you see somebody going in the door, you just go with a bunch of coffee boxes and says, hey, please, can you let me in? And then the guy says, oh yes, of course. He sees the coffee box, says, okay, it's the coffee guy, it's good. And he lets you in, and you're inside of the door, even though you don't have the key card. And things like that happen and are possible even in quite high security premises. That is not only in films, that is something that happens quite often. Now, of course, some way it's much easier if you're not on place, if you do network pen testing. That's also something that is still too easy for a lot of things. And there are even some kind of certifications where you can get official pen tester, and then if you have the certification, people know that they can trust you. So besides from pen testing, which is really an activity in itself, there is a whole set of people who find vulnerabilities. So this can be researchers like you will be perhaps later if you do a PhD here, or even if doing a master project, can be a researcher, can also be a professional. I saw a website that compared the money you get, whether you search for vulnerabilities or whether you search as a software engineer. And in most parts of the world, you're better off searching for vulnerabilities than for working as a software engineer. So what you do then, if you have found a bug, you can either go for full disclosure. So just say, okay, I'm putting it on Twitter. I, Linus, am the best because I found that if you send this black dot to WhatsApp, you can crash all WhatsApp applications, and then everybody has fun and crashes the WhatsApp applications with that black dot. I don't know, did you see that black dot? No? Nobody saw the black dot? Oh, come on, guys. What are you doing? Not on WhatsApp? That's harsh. There's a black dot, and it has a lot of invisible Unicode characters. And then if you send it to somebody, it displays, but when you click on it, the system tries to figure out where you really clicked. And obviously the method to find out what character you clicked on was never tested with 10,000 invisible Unicode characters. And it just takes 5 minutes to find out what you really clicked on. And after 5 seconds already Android says, well, this thing will never work out. WhatsApp crashed. So this is just an error, very funny error. Okay, so if you find vulnerability, you just do full disclosure, you just publish it. And you suppose if people know about it, they will fix it, okay? If you don't tell them, they will not fix it, so you just tell it to everybody, they will have to fix it. But this is not very responsible. Now, in the case of this black dot, it's not very bad. You can crash your friend's WhatsApp. Well, okay, he'll be annoyed a bit. That's not very bad. But you can have big vulnerabilities that are just posted online like that. That is very bad, because then as soon as it's posted online, everybody can download it, and also the bad guys can get it and can enter the computers. What is much better is to have some kind of coordinated disclosure, which means that you tell WhatsApp, say, okay, I found this bug with the black dot. In 30 days or in 45 days, I will publish it. So you have 30 or 45 days to fix it, and then I will publish it. So you put some pressure on. You tell them you will publish it, but you let them some time to fix the bug. So hopefully by the time you publish the bug, you still get all the renommee and you're still the best. But WhatsApp was able to fix it in the meantime. So that is very good. They have time to develop and release patches. So really the best way to do, I urge you, if you go into this vulnerability business, do coordinated disclosure. Of course, if you're a bit on the other side, you can do just a non-disclosure, so not sharing it, or like I told you about this device for $5,000 where you can crack any iPhone. Of course, they will not go to Apple and say, we found a bug, because it's their business to find this bug. So they will keep it for them. They will not disclose it. So this is bad, and in my opinion, should not be done. But, well, after all, it's your life. So there are then bug bounty programs. Because if people make lots of money with non-disclosure, well, Apple would like you to submit the bug request rather to them than to somebody else. So that's a very good system. But for example, for Apple, if you find a system exploit, so where you can get more or less a root access to their system, I think they give you currently $200,000 US, which is nice, okay? But there are companies who give you $500,000 US or $1 million. So what do? You give your exploit to Apple, and lose $300,000 or $800,000? Or do you give it to the correct company who will then make, you don't know really what with it, but, well, you have a lot of money. But you have to think about it, I mean. Yeah, no, still again not. Okay, so where would you submit in the end? And there's also the case that it might be that you give it to the company and the company says, oh, it's not this bad a bug and I will not pay you anything. So then you already disclosed it, they will probably fix it, so you cannot sell it to anybody else, then you're screwed. And as I said, other bugs, they might stay hidden in military or in these specialized companies that crack iPhones or so. There is Google who saw also this problem, and they started a dedicated work group that they called Project Zero, and their goal is to find zero-day exploits. So zero-day exploits means that it's exploits that are known since 0 days. So it's new exploits. It's exploits that are not known. So if you find a zero-day exploit, it means you can hack all the computers that run this system. So Google has a whole team of security, and they just search for these vulnerabilities. And they do this responsible disclosure, so they go to the vendor and say, listen, we have found this bug, you have 30 days or 45 days to fix it. And then if he fixes it before, well, they disclose it anyway, and if he doesn't fix it after 30 days, they still disclose it to make pressure on the vendor. So I think this is quite a nice program, and they found quite some bugs, not only in Windows, also in Apple, in their own Google products, and this, I think, is a very good program, and yeah, Apple is probably also doing something like that, but on a much less visible scale. Then there are these hacker conferences where these exploits are shown. Of course, if you are able to show an exploit at the hacker conferences, it's very prestigious, and people will say, do you remember the guy who showed how to trash a car in the car washing machine? So it seems that at the last, I think it was at Black Hat 2017, they showed that some of the car washing machines in the US, you could connect to them from the internet. And then you could, for example, shut the doors and just turn on all the water. So the guys were in the car trapped because, it's a big car washing machine where you go in with the car. And they were trapped inside of the car and water was coming. And if they tried to get out, then they just slammed the door in the car because they were able to override the security that tried not to touch the car. So it's just over the internet. You don't even need to be there, You just can go there, and probably somebody just put admin as username password, and you're able to get in. So that's really bad. And things like that are shown at these conferences. So Black Hat, the more towards corporate security. DEF CON is a bit more informal. I heard the story of DEF CON that if a speaker is very ennuyant, if a speaker is very boring, they give him something to drink, some alcohol to drink. And if it's still boring, he has to drink even more. So making him less boring, hopefully, at least for the attendance. And and some of these, it's big conferences, and there are some people who just want to show off and just show they're the best. So if you go there, you might, even if you have something good to show, they might completely just destroy you because you think you're not cool. And yes. So these conferences, Black Hat and DEF CON, these are the two biggest conferences where they really show vulnerabilities. There is a smaller one that's called InsomniHack that is in Geneva once per year. That's a nice little conference where usually people are nice with each other, and they also show some vulnerabilities there. So InsomniHack is a nice Swiss one. Okay, small question to keep you awake. If you found a vulnerability, what would you do? Found a vulnerability. So now you hope it's privacy preserving and I don't give the result to the police. So if you find a vulnerability, if you keep it to yourself and use it for creating my own hacker kit, sell it to the most suffering on the darknet, get a bug bounty from Apple, or just directly post it on Twitter. Oh yeah, zero-day root exploited iOS. Yeah, this is why Apple makes sense. Oh, some undecided. Very good. I see you have the Swiss spirit. You're nice and you give it to Apple. Very nice. You only get 200,000 and not 500,000, but still, it's good. It's good. Exactly. Okay. So some would go to the darknet. It's difficult to find the darknet, to find the right person, hoping that he really pays you. You could do some kind of smart contract on a blockchain or something like that, trying to get the money really from him. And yeah. Oh, there's a hacker in the room. Wow. I'm afraid now. To his own. Somebody wants to keep it to himself and create his own hacker kit. So, wonder who it is. Let's see. Or yeah, post it on Twitter. Yeah, I think it's better to sell it on the darknet than posting it on Twitter. At least you get some money. Okay, that was this. Data protection laws, EU and US. So I think you already heard a little bit about these data protection laws, no? I think in the PII. Okay. So I will go a little bit into details with the GDPR, because when I asked before also, not many of you knew it. It's a very important thing because sometimes it's only the law that can really make something more secure, but it's very difficult. Because everybody has its own law. I mean, Switzerland specifically, because Switzerland, we're not in the European Union, and of course we don't want to have foreign judges. That's the basic of Switzerland of 1291, not having foreign judges, so we don't want to have foreign laws, and as we will see later, in fact, that's in that case completely stupid. So, but different countries have different laws, and of course, companies try to avoid it by having these click-through agreements, click-wrap agreements, where they basically say, what is it here? We own all your data. We can do whatever we want to it. You can't sue us for anything ever. And if you want to dispute it, you have to find the judge that lives behind the moon, and you have to call him, and then we can see each other there. And if you're not able to get there, then we will not listen to you. So most of the time, we don't even read these agreements. I mean, you take a new application and it says you need to agree to these terms. You just say, okay. At least I don't read them. I don't know about you, but I don't read them. And also what is reasonable and what of these terms are really legal. I mean, if you have an agreement that says, I give my body to you for slavery, and you click agree, that will not be valid. Cannot do that. But up to what point can they go? So there are now coming more and more data protection laws out to try to discuss these things and say what is possible, what is not possible. And that's in fact quite a good thing. So in the European Union, it's always a bit stronger. So the Europeans, they believe in privacy, and the US, they believe in free market. So that's always a bit a fight between US and the EU. So the EU has been evolving and really starting to have a good program with this general data protection regulation. And this regulation is in fact something special. As we said before, it's on the 25th of May, so very soon that it comes into effect. And this regulation is something special because usually the EU only gives directives. So says, it would be good if we would do something along these lines. So gives general things that you should do. So you should do something about privacy. So that's a regulation. That's a directive, sorry. And then every member state implements it as it wants. Okay, so every privacy thing is different. Now a regulation is different. A regulation is really one law to rule them all. So it's the one law that will be valid for everybody in the EU. And as we'll see, also outside of the EU. And this is where Swiss gets bitten quite bad. The GDPR, they define these 5 actors. So this is something I really urge you to read up on. I think this will be very important for the near future. Will also be visible how they really use it. I mean, we still don't know what will really happen with the GDPR. On some hand, if they really insist on everything, lots of companies will have problem. On the other hand, if they don't do anything, it will be too bad. It will just be a law that is not useful. So there are these 5 people. You have the data controller, who is in fact responsible for the data. That could be, for example, Facebook. And then you have data processor. Let's say Facebook outsources its data handling from a company. So the data controller is Facebook, and the other guy, the one who treats the data, is the data processor. And then you have the data subject. Data subject is the subject, the person from whom you've taken the data. And this is where the GDPR says now, if any data subject in your database comes from an EU member, from somebody who lives in the EU, he does not even need to be a citizen of the EU, but if he lives in the EU, that's enough. You already are under the GDPR. So even if the data controller is in the US, the data processor is in Hawaii, as soon as the data subject comes from the EU, you're bound by the GDPR. And then they ask you to have some kind of data protection officer. It's in fact a very bad spot to be. So if somebody asks you, because you're in IT, at EPFL, would you be their data protection officer? Say no. Because it's the black goat. I mean, if something goes wrong, it's your problem. And if you see that they should change something, they'll probably say, oh, we don't have the resources to do that. So you're just there to take the hit. So say no, okay? Don't do it. Really not. And then the data protection authority is just the government that will look after you. So there are some key provisions of the GDPR, things that you need to do. The most important thing here is that you can be fined by up to 20 million euros or 4% of, and what is missing here is global. So up to 4% of your global annual turnover. So in the case of Amazon or of Facebook, if they say, well, in Europe we only made 2 billion, and so you can fine us only up to 4% of 2 billion, European Union says, well, worldwide you made 50 billion, so we will fine you up to 4% of these 50 billion worldwide. And it's turnover, it's not even gain. Like Amazon, who doesn't have any gain, they always invest all the money. So Amazon doesn't have any profit. Amazon has always 0 profit every year. They just invest so much. They cannot even hide behind that because it's turnover. So even Amazon can be hit by that. So that's quite a strong law. And then, the US has a bit a different approach where they have one law for everything. So for example, for the health, for the credit, for electric communication, but it's mostly very broad and they have a lot of loopholes in there. So if you make it right, if you put the data in the correct state, then you're not under these data protections. They try to put up this kind of wall of shame where they said if you're a hospital and your data gets stolen, if it's more than 500 person, you need to put it up on that wall of shame. So I just made a screenshot today, and the biggest breach was 3 million people, 3 million dossiers that got out. The latest is just a couple of months ago, still 600,000 dossiers that came out, but we're so used to it. We don't even hear about it. Okay, 500,000 patient infos got robbed, so what? I don't care anymore. It's really bad. We're really bad in that. Really bad in that. So for GDPR, I wonder, just as a general information, what do you guys know about GDPR, and have you already been touched by GDPR? I have to admit, me myself, I only in this last couple of months, all of a sudden people came to me and said, hey, you're at EPFL, do you know anything about GDPR? So either A, never heard of GDPR before. B, I've been asked by friends who have an organization. So Swiss also are under this law, in fact. And, or D, I had to revamp the organization. Or D, as I said, don't do it. I got elected as a TPO. I hope nobody chooses that. So while you're choosing, I tell you why Switzerland is in a very bad position. Because the GDPR protects whom? Only EU citizens. Swiss citizens are not EU citizens. So it does not protect us. But all our organizations, because, I mean, there's no organization in Switzerland that doesn't have at least one EU citizen in it. As soon as you have one EU citizen, his data and all the other data needs to be protected under the GDPR. So we need to follow the GDPR, whether we want it or not, but we're not protected. So people will now have the possibility, for example, in Facebook, to really delete all their data, but not Swiss people. Only French, German, and everybody else, but not Swiss people, because we're not under the GDPR. So if you go to Facebook and say, hey, you should delete that thing, you should also make it possible for Switzerland, it will tell us why. No, it's the data. We make money out of it. Come on, we want to keep it. And we have no way of saying, no, you should give it. Ah, very, very interesting. Okay. Very interesting. Okay, so it seems that nearly nobody heard of GDPR before. Very interesting. And some have been asked, who have been asked by friends who have an organization. Yes?
To be honest, it was missing an option. I heard of it, but nobody asked me about it.
Aha, okay, yes, sorry, okay. Who else heard of it but didn't get asked? Oh, very good. Oh, that's better, thanks, yeah. That was definitely missing, that option, yes. Definitely missing. Yeah, okay, sorry then, sorry. So it's less bad than I thought. That's good, yeah. So GDPR is really something that I think is important. Also, the Swiss government is now preparing, having their own laws and doing their own directives to also protect the Swiss people, because really it's, for the moment, we're in such a bad position. We're not protected, but we need to follow up. So we're just twice on the bad side. Okay, yes, 10 commandments of GDPR. If you have some time afterwards, you go through it. I found it on a website, and I found it gives a good, this is for small organizations. If you know small organizations up to 1,000 members or so, this can be a good first steps of what you need to do. I won't go into details here. You can also follow the link and do this. Okay, finishing off with privacy, speech, anonymity, and accountability. That's big one. Perhaps you remember that, or you saw that picture once on the internet. Nobody knows you're a dog. It's very nice. You can just, chat and do whatever you want. You can just masquerade. You can hide behind pseudonyms and IP addresses. It's very nice because it empowers marginalized groups, so queers and gay people and I don't know, black or Christians or Muslims or Buddhists or whoever who feel threatened. They can communicate over the internet and have some communication, which is very nice if it goes in a nice way. So there was this original thing called Usenet. Was a bit the first communication platform used on the internet. It was kind of a list of mailing lists, and you could subscribe to every mailing list that you wanted to. So you had the user PC, and you could subscribe to some mailing lists, and then they got forwarded and copied through some servers, and others could also write to that mailing list. It was a very simple, unmoderated thing, very popular. And if you see here, these are the number of books that have been written. This is from Amazon. And you see in 95 there have been, well, it's only 7 books, but the internet was young then. So there has been some people using this, but it didn't have any user authentication. So everybody could write anything he wanted to on it. And there was some group moderation, but usually it was not used. And in Usenet there came this what is called the Godwin's law is that usually at a given moment the discussion's finished by, oh, you're a Nazi. Oh, yeah, you're also a Nazi. And then everybody was just a Nazi. And then Godwin's law stated that when you point to somebody else out that he's a Nazi, in fact, you lost the argument. So that's Godwin's law. So that came from the Usenet because if you're anonymous, if nobody can know who you are, people sometimes just don't think and just post anything. And so Usenet, in fact, there are a lot of messages still being written to Usenet, but it's mostly just spam. So it's really not useful. Then you have this kind of trolls, so trolling where people just try to abuse other people, writing bad things, yeah, the Nazi one, but it can also just be saying you're stupid, you didn't understand anything, why do you write that? And it's just incredible. It's just, they're all over the place. So there is also this thing called doxing here, where you broadcast sensitive personal data. So if, for example, you know the telephone number of Alain Berset, one of the conseillers fédéraux, and you post it on the internet, and everybody will be able to spam him and call him, and he will be annoyed. So that's called doxing. Or revenge porn, that's really a bad one. I think Facebook is now taking measures against revenge porn, and they're quite, yeah. Well, why would you take your pictures? Anyway, okay. So problem is that you have what is called Sybil attacks. So Sybil attacks or sock puppetry is just the way of saying if you can easily make 100 accounts, if I know that one of the accounts is saying stupid stuff, I close it, well, you just take one of the other 99 accounts. So that's a Sybil attack. You just multiply yourself and say, now I am 1 out of 100. And sock puppetry also is just if you have these 100 accounts and you can all have them say, Trump is great, Trump is the best, and then everybody will read, oh, Trump is the best. Oh, yes, in fact, why not? Yes, Trump is the best. Then everybody will believe you. Then also you can have anonymity using Tor, where in fact you hide your source IP address so that people cannot know where you come from, which is nice, but people abuse Tor. And there was even the case of somebody in the Tor community who in the end found out who was a troll and doxed him, so put his personal data on the internet because the guy was writing so many stupid stuff. But this anonymity has a problem. If you don't know who is coming to your site, you cannot ban them. So perhaps you have people trying to attack your site, so you'd like to ban that IP. But if the guy goes through Tor, you always have a different IP. So you cannot ban all the IPs, or if you do, in fact, you ban the whole Tor network. And that is something that happens very often nowadays, is that Tor has just access denied. If you use Tor to go to a website, specifically if the website is hosted by Cloudflare, then often you just have access denied if you go through Tor. Because the owner of the website does not want to have an anonymous user, he wants to be able to track the users, he wants to be able to know what you're doing, he wants to be able to make money off you. So they don't like anonymous users. Yes, so there's this fake news. I think you all followed this Mr. who is very good in creating fake news, and then everybody tweets it. And now is the big question, how much did he profit from this fake news during his elections? Of course, he didn't do anything wrong, except the things he did, but that was not wrong. There's this fundamental conflict between privacy and accountability, and there are some things that can help, but in fact, nothing really had a breakthrough. So, of course, in our lab, we're the Decentralized Distributed Systems Lab. We also invented something that we call POP parties, so proof of personhood parties, where what we want to do is we want to be able to give one cryptographic token to one and only one person. And then the idea is that the person using this cryptographic token, he can authenticate himself towards the service. Now, the way this is done, it's something called linkable group signatures. It's very nice. In fact, you can, where do you have that? You can create a signature to prove that you was at, we call it parties. So you say we create a party, everybody goes in, everybody gets a cryptographic token and goes out. And then you can prove that you were at that party. But the service will not know who you were from that party. It just knows you were at that party because you can prove it using your private key. But then you can go one step further, and that's the funny thing with these linkable ring signatures, is you can create what is called a context. So let's say for a voting, you don't want people to be able to vote as many times as they want to. You want each attendee of the party only to vote once, but you don't want to know who it is. So it's a contradiction there, but in fact with cryptography you can solve that. So you can make it so that for voting, each attendee can only vote once, and at the same time, for Wikipedia, they can exclude trolls. So if you use your POP token to authenticate towards Wikipedia, and you just write everywhere, I'm the best, I'm the best, I'm the best, then Wikipedia can shut off your account. However, very nice with these linkable ring signatures is that the voting service and the Wikipedia service, they cannot collude to find out you're the same person. So Wikipedia knows that they banned somebody, the voting part knows that somebody voted, but they cannot collude and find out it's the same person. So you have kind of for each service you have your own identity, but it is always part of this group, party group, of this anonymity group. So this is our proposal, but of course there are many flaws. I mean, you have to have all these proof of personhood parties. This is yet another authentication scheme, and people don't want to add yet another authentication scheme. That's just too much work. So yeah, we're still working on that, and we're still trying from time to time. So far we made 2 parties, but we only use it for very simple things like up or down voting tracks. If you're more interested, you can click on this link, and some advertisement also for the master projects. We also have very nice master projects on this thing. Yes, if you're interested. And there is something called proof of individuality, which tries to solve more or less the same problem. But instead of having a party where they put everybody in one room, they take video chat to make sure that you only have one token. Because the problem is, of course, if you get multiple tokens, then you can again impersonate against multiple persons, and then you have the same problem as before. You can create a Sybil attack. Okay, proof of individuality. Yes. So how can we make that trolling is deterred? Do we need to have real names like Facebook also tried? Do we need to have identity cards before we accept somebody? How can we introduce truth in the online world? So that's a really big one. And yeah, can we have freedom of speech and still protect against spam? Okay, so last small speak up with regard to freedom of speech. Freedom of speech, let's say limits. So it's again multiple responses. It's mostly to show you that in fact sometimes it's difficult to say what should be included in freedom of speech and what should not be included. So from your point of view, some people say freedom of speech overall, whatever you want to say, say it. And some people say, well, there are limits. So what are the limits? Really, there's no right or wrong answer. Just question, what, in your opinion, are the limits of freedom of speech that you think that should not be overstepped? So is it either religious discussion and criticism, incitement to criminal behavior? That could be, say, like describe how you can key lock a door or something like that. Libel, slander, so saying this guy is bad because I saw him doing something even though it's not right. Child abuse, criticism of government, saying, the government did this thing bad, they didn't repair the roads, or they always tried to keep all the money. Terrorist propaganda, people who say, well, we should kill everybody or something like that. Okay, let's see. A funny one, child abuse. Child abuse always works. It's the UK also, they had privacy laws where they were able to get into people's home and download all their stuff from their computers. And then it's all about child abuse. Was the first thing they said. Okay, so it's one of these words that work all over the place. I'm not for child. I don't think it's good to do child abuse. I don't think it's good to use it on the internet. But if you see somebody saying, "Oh, we should do this law because of child abuse," think that in fact everybody thinks it's important. So perhaps they're trying to hide something behind it. Okay. Okay. Then terrorist propaganda. Yes. Again, please. Be careful of the definition of terrorism. It's really difficult, okay? Again, you can put a lot of things under terrorism that are terrorism for ones and not for others. So it's really a difficult word. And incitement to criminal behavior, yes, sounds good. Libel, slander. And what is here? Criticism of government. It's also a question, what kind of criticism? Is it good criticism or bad criticism? Is it saying, pointing out bad things the government is doing? I think that's very important. Saying the government should not be just giving loans to their friends, but should be giving loans to everybody. So I think that's something very good. But of course, there's criticism of government that is not good, and also religious discussion and criticism. Is it allowed to say, I don't like this religious leader, I don't like that religious leader, I think that this religious movement is wrong, or that other religious movement should keep quiet a bit? Yes. So these are big questions that, I hope I could make you think a bit about what the different things are to put into the balance for this. And that was the last slide. I think I have one last one for the road. If I manage to close this thing here. Yeah, security is hard, needs to be incentivized. We have this privacy versus the state. This is a very nice quote. Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. Benjamin Franklin, very often quoted when somebody wants to restrict liberties. And yes, GDPR is coming. Read up on it. Okay, have a very nice evening and nice weekend. Bye.